that's going to be my new opening. Anyone familiar with that opening knows it's from Baba Booey and Gary Dell'Abate and the Howard Stern. That was the famous opening from Gary's love letter to a girlfriend he had just broken up, and he made a video of it, and it was famously played on the Howard Stern show back in '99. Anyways, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Quaz coming at you with another rendition of the podcast show, Quazemoto Show. D is absent once again. I don't know where he is. Hopefully he's safe. Hopefully he's not locked up. So D, if you're hearing this and you're not locked up, give me a hit, bro. Let's get right into it. I want to bring up an email from Kevin in Louisville, Kentucky. And this is in response to a show back a while back. And Kevin writes, hey Quaz, I wanted to comment about your show when you talked about A Place Beyond the Pines. I saw this movie and think it's one of the best movies out there. I agree with you, Kevin. I had not really seen or cared about Place Beyond the Pines until I had watched it in full. I watched it in bits and pieces, and I didn't really catch on to it. I'd see Ryan Gosling, racing on his motorbike, and I thought, well, there's something to this, but the attention just wasn't there. Until I heard a couple of people talk about it, comments on shows and whatnot. I'm like, all right, let me check this out. So I got into it 30 minutes late, and right to the point where Gosling comes back to Schenectady, trying to rekindle with his girl Eva Menendez, but she rebuffs him, and then he goes, he hooks up with the dude that introduces him to Robin Banks. And the story as a whole is about actions and what those actions mean, not only to yourself but the people around you, and more so to the people after you, meaning your sons and daughters. Ryan Gosling robbed a bank. He got busted for it, and he got killed and shot for it ultimately. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't care, you should see it by now. I'm not gonna hold the ending, but Ryan Gosling gets shot up by what's the name of that dude? Dude from American Sniper. I'm a big fan of his, but he plays a cop in the movie. I'll figure out his name in a second. Ultimately, the cop shoots Ryan Gosling, and Ryan Gosling's dead. So Ryan Gosling's dead, and he leaves behind Eva Menendez and their 1-year-old son and whatnot. And so the American Sniper dude, he's a cop. He becomes a hero for his actions, but he feels guilty about it because he finds out that Ryan Gosling, the guy he shot, leaves behind Eva Menendez and their kid. And much like him and his wife, they have a little baby. So he holds on to this guilt, and then they fast forward about 17 years, and not necessarily. Let me hold back a little. Ray Liotta, who does an outstanding job, he makes a little cameo in this. Ray Liotta plays a detective, and they ask for the American Sniper's help to help them arrest some bad guys, and they do this by gathering evidence from Eva Menendez. Ryan Gosling had left some money to Eva Menendez, and the detectives, Ray Liotta, they take the American Sniper, and they go get this money, and they're like, this is your money, hold on to it, do what you ever want with it, right? But what they don't know is they're putting dirt on him, and they're going to call in a favor later, and that's exactly what they do. But American Sniper doesn't go for it. He turns in Ray Liotta and the detectives as dirty cops, and he turns the precinct upside down, but he quits the precinct and becomes a lawyer. Ultimately leads into a race he goes into a career of politics. Fast forward 17 years, American Sniper's son asks to come live with him, and we find out he's a junkie, like smoking weed, ecstasy, oxycontin, whatnot, and he hooks up with guess who else? Ryan Gosling's kid, who's also 17. They go to the same high school, and Ryan Gosling's kid is a junkie too. So they hook up, but then when they go out and try and purchase some oxycontin or acid or weed or whatnot, they get busted by the cops. American Sniper dad isn't happy, but he finds out that his son is hanging out with Ryan Gosling's kid, and he kind of looks out for him and lets him off lightly, being him, he's the district attorney and whatnot. Ultimately, I don't want to blabber on. Ultimately, what happens is, Ryan Gosling's kid finds out that American Sniper's dad had killed his kid, and he wants redemption. And he beats up the American Sniper's son and kidnaps the American Sniper and takes him out to the woods, thus a place beyond the pines, and he's going to kill him. But when he asks him for his money and his wallet, he finds, backtrack. American Sniper pleads for his wife, his life, calls him by his name and whatnot. Ryan Gosling kid feels remorse and leaves him in the woods. The reason I'm saying all this shit is because our actions don't just affect us. Our actions, good or bad, have long-term ripple effects. We don't know it immediately, but whatever we do in our lives has some sort of bearing to not only ourselves, our wives, our family, brothers, sisters, mother, father, but even your kids, and who knows, even your kids' kids, because think about it this way, what if, you find out that your dad was, a Vietnam hero, he was a Gulf War hero more recently, or your mom had did some jail time for drug offenses, a DUI, but she never told you, but you found out one day by Googling them, right? It happens, people Google their names, and then, how's your kid going to react that, you hid this shit from him or her, pissed off, angry, upset, they call you a liar and whatnot, and, that trust is, not there anymore. It's not at 100% anyways. More so to the point, people we become, it goes to our sons and our daughters. It is true, the saying, the son becomes the father, or the daughter becomes the mother. Because our personality, our characteristics are absolutely passed down through hereditary means to our sons and daughters. What we become in life will become of our sons and daughters. Our actions, our personalities, what we do in life will absolutely have an impact on what our sons and daughters become. So the movie is very deep, and I watch it over and over again, and I catch a little bit more shit every time. Little subtle characteristics in Gosling and the American Sniper. I'll figure out his name soon enough. But those traits are seen within the father, are seen within the sons of both Gosling and the American Sniper. It's a deep movie, and I love it. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out, and speak on this. Think about it. Speak on it. What we do in our lives, does it have any bearing with what's going to happen with our future generations? I say absolutely it does. Kevin, thank you for the email. And, he asked me to say, what's this, the Louisville Cardinals? Is it Cardinals? Go Louisville Cardinals, I can't say Kentucky Wildcats, then he'll be hating me. Anyways, That's one of the emails. There was a lot more emails I wanted to get to, and one of them was about, I don't have the email with me, but one of them was about drifting. For those of you who don't know, drifting is a form of racing with the car. Pretty much it's braking and going full speed at the same time, and then turning a wheel just so it slides, thus forth, drifting. I posted some videos this week on my FaceTube about some guys drifting in garages on those little, exit ramps, and then drifting late at night on some mountainside. And drifting is totally insane. I absolutely want to try it. I've never done it, but I'm super stoked about maybe getting an opportunity to drift. And I'm always like that one dude in the Vacation remake. He was in The Office as well. He's like, yeah, I can drift just like Vin Diesel, and he pulls on the emergency brake or the e-brake and turns the wheel, and they're like little, Prius. It goes tumbling and does cartwheels and shit. And I'm just like, sometimes I'm sitting there in my little Corolla, and I'm like, man, I can drift on this corner. Oh, it'd be so awesome if I drift on this exit ramp. And I'm so tempted to pull the emergency brake, slam on the accelerator, and turn the wheel opposite direction of the turn that I'm on, and just start drifting mad, crazy. But I know, my little hoopty Corolla is just not fit for it. Definitely down the road, I want to absolutely have the opportunity to just get a souped up car, like a Toyota Supra, Nissan Skyline, GTR. I even do it in a Lambo. If someone said, hey, take my Lambo and start drifting, I'll drift in a Lambo. Fuck it, I don't give a fuck. Lambos and Ferraris, that's just a good segue into my next segment. I just hate it when people, they get Lambos, they get Ferraris, they get Porsches, and they take them for Sunday drives. These cars are like built for speed. Race these motherfuckers. And I see so many times, like, I'm pushing, I see a Lambo on the street, and I start racing it in traffic in my little beat up Corolla. I used to do it with my Beamer. And, sometimes my whole philosophy is racing is 50% car, 50% driver. You can have the fastest car on the street, but if you're too scared to drive, I'm gonna beat your ass every single time. I'll take you on in a Corolla. Yeah, you might hit the gas on the freeway, on a straightaway with no traffic and beat me. That's okay. I catch you in traffic, I'm gonna beat you. And even if on a straightaway, you might beat me for 50 yards, but if you're not willing to go red line, you're a punk. You're scared. You don't want to do it. And that's why, like, when I see Lambos and Ferraris and Porsche 911s on the street, and they're just not maxing out, and I see dudes challenge them all the time, and it might be arrogance. There might be like a Mustang or an M3 that's challenging a Ferrari, and the Ferrari's like, no way, I ain't gonna waste my time on you. You know what? If you don't got the skills, just say it. I ain't gonna race you. But I'd be more than happy to take on a Ferrari or a Lambo or a Porsche. I'm not scared. I'll race you. And if I had a Ferrari, if I had a Lambo, I'd be maxing it. I'd be redlining it. I'd be taking on dudes on bikes. Those pocket rocket bikes. The Ducatis and shit. I know they'd whip me in a heartbeat, because those things are just built for speed, and you just can't beat them unless you want a pocket rocket. But I wouldn't be scared to race you, that's for sure. I'm not scared to fuck up a Lambo or a Ferrari. If I had ends like that where I can afford a Ferrari, shit, I'm not worried about wrecking it either. I can believe me on that. Oh man. Someone asked me, hey, what's your dream car? If I had the ends, if my chips were stacked just right, Ferrari, hands down. I'll get a lot of grief for this. You know, I already see the emails coming, and you know, Twitter tweets. You know, what's wrong with you, Quaz? You know, what about a Lambo? What about the Bentley and whatnot? First of all, I'm not going to waste my time on a Bentley on a Rolls. You know, that's for show. You know, I like fast cars. You know, Porsche 911, Ferrari, Lambo. That's what I'd go for. You know, would I waste my money on something smaller like an M3? Sure. You know, would I waste my money on an Audi? No. I think Audis are crap. Yeah, I can't stand them. You know, Mustang, maybe, because some of them look really nice and I like them. Camaro, yes. You know, would I go for muscle? Because like I can see the tweets coming in already, or the Facebook posts or whatnot. Yo, you know, what about American Muscle? I'm a big fan of American Muscle, but I'm more of a fan towards the imports. You know, the Skylines, the GTRs, the Supras, the Lambos, the Ferraris. You know, that's what gets me going. You know, you give me a souped up M3, I'll take that any day over a Camaro. That's for sure. You know. But anyways, I digress. I got an email also that a lot of people, they know I talk about wrestling on the show, and I might lose half my audience right now if I haven't already when I was blabbing on about Place Beyond the Pines. You know, they asked about, you know, who's my favorite wrestler, or what's my favorite wrestling moment. You know, and I replied to a couple of them, and we were going back and forth talking about wrestlers, and I started talking about Roddy Piper, and this one dude, I can't remember his name, but he's out in Vegas, who I was exchanging emails with. He's like, yo, Q, you know, yo, Piper's dead. I'm like, what? And then he sent me a link, you know, showing WWE giving a Piper a tribute, and he died in 2015. I'm like, oh shit. And I didn't know that. And then I'm like, who else died? Right? And you know, and the other YouTube link, you know, they had like Macho Man, which I knew about, and you know, that documentary, the Macho Madness documentary, absolutely a must see for any wrestling fan. I found out Dusty Rhodes died. Kind of shocked, but wasn't surprised because I knew he was up there in age. Dusty Rhodes still one of the, you know, greatest wrestlers on my list. You know, right up there with Flair and Hogan. Yeah, I put Hogan in the top 10. You know, but I'm more like, you know, Road Warriors, Ultimate Warrior, even Roddy Piper. You know, Stone Cold, The Rock, guys like that. You know, Hogan, yeah, he did a lot for wrestling, but wrestling did a lot for him also. If Vince McMahon didn't sign Hogan and bring him out of the AWA drudges and make him into Hulkamania, who knows where Hulkster might have been. You know, he still might have been a heel, wrestling circuits in, you know, in Florida, and with Nick Bockwinkel and Greg Gagne and AWA and whatnot. You know, but that can be true for a lot of wrestlers. You know, what would have happened if Stone Cold didn't take on the Stone Cold gimmick, and he was still hanging around Ted DiBiase with his little golden hair on top of his head that he was losing daily? You know, what if Rock stuck to the Rock Maivia character and never became, you know, the Great One or, you know, Rocky or whatnot? You know, there's a lot of what ifs, but you know, definitely a big fan of Road Warriors, and I'd have to say Ultimate Warrior is one of my favorite characters, and one of my favorite moments. You know, I take it back to the preamble to the WrestleMania between I think it was WrestleMania 4 or 5 between Hogan and Warrior, with Warrior won the belt, right? The lead up to that was just beautiful. You know, there was a Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble is always like, you know, a little glimpse of what WrestleMania main event's going to be. And the Royal Rumble, we had Warrior and Hogan unexpectedly face off in the Royal Rumble. Hogan cleared the ring, Warrior cleared the ring, and then the two guys just face off against each other. And me being a little kid watching this, I was going nuts. I was like, yes, you know, because I'm like, you know, Warrior can kick Hogan's ass, you know, and I was rooting for Warrior. And Hogan, you know, they went about it. They, you know, went at it for about 6 minutes until another wrestler came in. And I think it was $1 Million Man, and broke it up. And I think Hogan ended up winning the Royal Rumble. But, you know, that gave us a little, you know, teaser as to what WrestleMania would be. And then both Hogan and Warrior's like, yeah, I haven't been tested like I was tested that night at the Rumble. The interviews and the promos both Hogan and Warrior cut for those, you know, just led up to the build-up to WrestleMania 4. And I was so geeked up over it, you know, I slopped out $50 to get the pay-per-view for WrestleMania. There's very few pay-per-views that I've actually paid for in life. You know, most of them I get bootleg copies on the night that it happens. But I paid good money, legal money, to watch Hogan Warrior, and it was worth it. One of the best WrestleManias, I think, ever, where Warrior, he pinned Hogan 1, 2, 3 cleanly. One of the few people to do that with Hogan as champion. You know, it was great, and you know, I was always sad when I heard about Warrior passing away. You know, like 2 days after he got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Because he was one of my favorite wrestlers, and one of my favorite pictures is of him and Sting back in like 1984 or 85, and they were just starting out. They were in California. They met, you know, at the gym as bodybuilders, and you know, both of them figured out, you know, discovered, hey, I like wrestling, you like wrestling, let's give this shit a try. And the two of them took a picture, like, you know, when they were like almost teenagers. They were still big dudes even when they were teenagers. And that's like when Sting had commented when he posted that picture, you know, this is a picture of me and the Warrior right as we were about to embark on our wrestling careers, and it shows two young Warrior and Sting. You know, that's one of my favorite pictures, you know, and that just like takes me back. Like those dudes, you know, way back then, they knew they were gonna, if they dedicated themselves and they committed to it, they would conquer the wrestling world, and they did, you know. And now I go back and I see clips of Warrior and Sting. You know, I didn't really know they knew each other like that back then, but now when I see clips of them, you know, now I know, like, hey, those two dudes knew each other. You know, much like Snuka and Paul Orndorff, they were a tag team. Back in like I think with Nick Bockwinkel in Florida or something. That's where Orndorff came up in the early 70s. Him and Snuka, and then like, you know, you had Snuka with Hogan and Mr. T against Piper, Cowboy Bob Orton, and Orndorff in like the first WrestleMania. And me as a kid, I would have never had known Snuka and Orndorff were tag team partners back in those days, you know, because like back in those days, you know, no one knew a shit about wrestling, you know, what went on in the backstage and whatnot. I thought wrestling was real back then. I was like, oh shit, Hogan's gonna kick the shit out of Piper and Orton, you know. But yeah, that's my favorite moment. I would say not even, you know, WrestleMania 4 where Warrior beats Hogan, but also that Royal Rumble moment where Warrior and Hogan faced off for the first time, you know. Good times. I know, again, I'm already seeing the emails, you know, hey, what about Macho Man and I think it was Tito Santana or no, Ricky Steamboat in WrestleMania 3. Yeah, that was a great match, you know. But, you know, I was more of a fan of Warrior. That's why it ranks higher than that. You know, just like I think, you know, Ice Cube's, you know, one of my favorite rappers. I'd pick Ice Cube over Biggie and Pac, you know. And I caught a lot of grief for that when I said that, but I stick to my guns. I just like Ice Cube better than Pac and Biggie. You know? Deal with it, people. Anyways, I had a reunion of sorts with a long lost friend, and it's I wouldn't even say a friend. It's just someone I've known and admired for a long time, and it's Howard Stern. I started listening to Stern shows again, YouTube clips. You know, that's where I saw the Baba Booey love letter clip or love video clip, and you know, it had been a long time since I listened to Stern, just because, you know, Stern went to Sirius, and I stopped paying for Sirius a long time ago, even though I started listening to him when he went to it, and just didn't want to shell out the money. But now you can find streaming Stern episodes all over the internet, and I just got reacquainted with the Stern Show and just how fucking funny it is. I started watching clips of fights on the Stern Show. Artie Lang against Andrew Dice Clay, or Artie versus Sal and the other dude, Richard, what's his name? Something Richards, or Benji versus Dice Clay. It was just funny shit. And the one I watched today, just before going on the podcast, was when Howard Stern, he interviews Sacha Baron Cohen. Two different interviews. One as Borat, when Sacha was promoting his Borat movie, and the other one was just Sacha just as him, just being himself and just talking to Howard. And I was just I'm a big fan of Stern. I'm a big fan of Cohen, and just to be able to hear both Sacha both as Borat and himself, it was good shit. So if anyone who's a Stern fan and hasn't listened to Howard in a long time, I say, YouTube him, and you'll fall in love with the show all over again. You remember the good times that you had for many years. I know I did, listening to Howard and his show. So that's my recommendation of the week. Listen to Howard Stern. Even if you never listened to him, and have opinions of him already and refuse to listen to the Stern Show, listen to him. Dude's funny as hell. He does great interviews. The whole Stern gang, the Whack Pack and everything, funny as hell. If you just want a good laugh for a few minutes, listen to the Stern Show. That's it. I'm gonna get off my drama box or speak out box, whatever they call it. But that's it for the show. Next week I'm gonna try and have my boy Joel. For listeners of the show that familiar, Joel's a buddy of mine, and he's got great sports and political insights. So I was rapping to Joel. I'm like, yeah, man, you need to come on the show again. We can talk some football as the football season's getting ready to start. And he's like, oh, hell yeah, Q, I'll be happy to do it. That's my Joel impersonation. So I'm going to try and get Joel on the show and have him on next week, and we're going to talk football and politics and all that fun stuff. Shout out to Joel, of course. Shout out to my wife, who I love. To Vakar again. Thanks for hosting us in New York when we were up there. Everyone, thank you for the emails. Thank you for listening. I see more and more people are listening to the show, and I definitely appreciate it. Keep listening. Keep sending me your emails and questions and whatnot. This is the Quazemoto Show. You can find the show on YouTube. You can find it on my Facebook page. Just Google it, Quazemoto Show on Facebook, Quazemoto Show on YouTube, Twitter, whatnot. I post it everywhere, even on Tumblr. So find me, listen to me, like me, send me your emails. Email address is quazimotoshow@gmail.com. For my buddy D, who's missing in action, he's probably getting high, in all honesty. He's probably getting high somewhere. For D, this is your boy Quaz. Thanks for listening. Peace.